These three rings, created by our ancient ancestors, have distinct and interreliant meanings. The first ring is the zodiac around the middle. It is the boundary between the mortal world and the spiritual and underworlds. The 12 constellations relating to the months of the year are located on the ring of the zodiac. The second ring is the Milky Way, representing the passage of life from the spirit of our ancestors, crossing as we are born into the mortal world, nurturing us as we live our mortal lives. And as we pass, the Milky Way crosses down into the underworld. Our soul journeys on the great ship to join our ancestors to be returned, completing the cycle. Perhaps this is the origin of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. The third ring is the epic of creation, a collective sense of the evolution of civilization emerging from the abyss below and creating therefrom a pure lineage. This is also a cycle of renewal that our ancestors appreciated, having arisen from the ashes of many previous cataclysms and disasters. There is one ring to bind these three rings, one concept that defines them all and only makes sense of each individually and combined when considered with the other two. That one ring is time. This was the collective genius and understanding of our ancient ancestors, a state of awareness that we struggle with even today. We have no understanding of the recurring cycles of evolution, for example. The ring of the zodiac is time as it passes in every moment, constant and unceasing. It is the winding of time. The word zodiac, I've said that. The ring of the Milky Way is the passing of time of the person and their soul from birth, the now, and through to eternity. And the third ring, the ring of the epic of creation, is the time within which civilization exists, from dawn, rising from the last fate, Genesis, until dusk, the end of days, Revelations. The heavens are time itself, and it was determined comprehensively and completely on the star maps of Gwynedd many thousands of years ago. Incredibly, there is a single word that better represents this overall concept, the uniqueness and interdependence of these three superior rings of time. That word is Amsa. It means time. But in the verbal tradition, depending on context, it can also mean date, season, or period. Our ancient ancestors crafted this word carefully because it is made up of two components, Ser, which is stars, and Am. As a conjunction, it means for because. As a preposition, it means about, beyond. As a prefix, it is synonymous with circum, like circumference or circumspect. And as a noun, it also means notion or idea. Each of these different uses of Am are represented in the three rings of the stars. Circum, the zodiac, because, creation, about, beyond, the journey of the soul on the Milky Way. Together, these are the notion, the idea of time.
It's a representation, the oldest representation known of the sky. It's older than the official date given for the oldest sky representations in Egypt, 1600 BC. Its diameter is 32 centimeters, which is 1 Persian foot. And these copper bands were seen immediately to be an indication of the solstice angles at that latitude. So that's something that's officially recognized. It's if you take the center of the disk, if you draw the two lines from those extremities and you get a central point, then that corresponds to an angle, 41 degrees on either side of the central line, and that's the angle corresponding to solstice angles. From, say, summer solstice to winter solstice is divided into 9 parts, and because that's approximately 180 days, half a year, divided by 9, that's 20 days. So we have a kind of symbolic division of the year cycle into 20-day periods. This is a parqua. It's a representation, Chinese representation. I'm just showing this very briefly to show you that the Chinese, or remind you that the Chinese, when they position things, put the south at the top. We're used to putting the north at the top when we do things, whereas the Chinese are looking towards the sun, towards the southern sky, the manifested world, and so they orientate things towards the south. And that's what's been said about the Nebra sky disk, is that we're looking south here. This is quite obvious. I mean, everybody can see here fairly clearly a sun and a moon. The crescent moon, of course, and the sun. And these two objects go to the southern sky. You'll never see the sun and the moon due north. Well, unless you go to the North Pole. But at the latitude of Nebra, you won't see them due north. So we're looking towards the southern sky. Now towards the southern sky, and what also was immediately recognized is this group of 7 dots, which are clearly identified as Pleiades. The Pleiad in French, Pleiades, that's how it's pronounced, isn't it? The 7 sisters, they're called. And this representation is also the southern sky. Pleiades, very close to the constellation of Taurus, which we see in the southern sky. Very recognizable. Here they are, the open star cluster of Pleiades. And the central star is called Maya, and that's very interesting. We're looking into this now. Here you can see on an astral map, star map, the position of Pleiades with respect to the constellation of Taurus. And here you can see it in the Lascaux Caves. This is work done by Chantal Jegg-Volkieviez, who I've invited to come and talk twice in Karnak, who's done incredible work about the astronomical orientation of the Lascaux Caves. And she's quite convinced that these paintings are representations of the night sky. And here you can see how the Taurus, the drawing of Taurus, the painting of the bull here with the stars on its horns, and this is the eye of Taurus, Aldebaran. And here you have these little dots here behind the Taurus's neck, the bull's neck, which could quite clearly represent Pleiades. Just on top of that, look how that fits. Okay, so that's virtually exactly the same graphical representation of Pleiades on a Sumerian engraving and on the Nebra sky disk. Okay? So the chances of that happening by chance are very slight. And Maya is seen to be the central star. Now Maya was the mother of Hermes, and she was the oldest of the Pleiades, who were all sisters. 7 beautiful sisters known as Pleiades. And the 5th month of the year was named May in her honor. May from Maya. Now this is going to become very interesting when we discover what was happening in May 1600 BC at the latitude of Nebra. The other thing I wanted to point out is that the 1st of May was always a feast day. It's 40 days after spring equinox. It's called Beltane or Beltane in Celtic, and it's the feast day for unmarried young women. You have processions with the Queen of May, and hence the word in English maid, and in French mademoiselle, in German Mädchen. These are all words coming from Maya, or the month of May. It's very interesting because now we know that the Pleiades are young stars. They're just been born. It's a kind of nursery of stars. And so somehow the ancients associated these stars with the idea of vaginal energy. But it's not only in Europe. Here the Maori, which is same sort of word as Maya, and their year starts at the end of May, when the Pleiades return to visibility, the heliacal rising of Pleiades. Some of you may know that the 20-day calendar was used by the Mayans, the Mayan civilization. Isn't that strange? They have the same name. Score means 20, but it also means to mark. Like in football, you score, but it means to mark, to score something, scour, to score. And so we get this idea that 20 was something that you would mark out. 20 days, 20 is linked to marking things out. We get the 20 system in French as well, because instead of saying 80, they say 4 times 20, 80, for those who know French. So the 20-based system can still be found in Europe. Just show you the dates then that these holes would correspond to, the date periods going from the 21st of June up to the 21st of December. Immediately when this disc was found, the question was, what is this arc, this golden arc at the bottom? Well, it's at the bottom if we look at it this way, and because it's an arc shape, then it was seen as a solar boat. In Egypt, there's a whole thing about the sun being in a boat, and it goes from one side, it changes boats at midnight. It's taken from one boat to the other, and midnight goes up to midday, etc. So the idea, in fact, is that the sun does not have its own movement. It has to be in something which is going to get it to move. It's the same for the Celts. The Celts had the sun on a horse. This is very interesting because it kind of indicates that they knew that the sun was immobile. In other words, in the center of the solar system. And it needed something to get it to move. But the thing is, if you turn the disk round, it's not a boat at all anymore, it's a vault. Okay, a heavenly vault in the night sky, in the northern sky. Because the whole advantage of a circle is you can turn it, right? You can turn it round, and you can see the south sky or the northern sky. I found very, very interesting about this golden arch is the relationship between the bit that's been shown and the bit that is missing. Because it's a bit of a circle, right? It's part of a circle. So if we take the angle from the center, you get 137.5 degrees, which means that the bit that's missing is an arc of 225 degrees. Can you? So this is in gold, right? This arc is made of gold, and it's the golden ratio of the circle between the hidden bit and the visible side. That is very, very powerful information. And again, if you take the whole of the circle, 360, you divide by 137.5, you get 2.618, which is the golden ratio squared. They say there are 39 or 40 holes around the disk. Now, they can't be 39 or 40, right? There has to be either 39 or 40, and in fact there are 39. But seeing as nobody has any idea about why there could be 39 holes around a disk, 40 is a much nicer number, divided by 4, you know, you get the... But in fact, these holes are not opposite each other, apart from 4. There are 4 holes which are exactly opposite each other and which are linked to the moon. These spaces which seem to have been adjusted. So 9 segments of 4 spaces, 36 spaces, plus 3 spaces, 39 holes. So that seems how it was traced. If you want to do the intermediate holes, then you can use a triple square, as you can see on this diagram. This works because if you divide a circle into 39, that gives you an angle of 9.23 degrees. If you multiply that by 2, that gives you 18.46. This is the this is the angle of a triple square with an error of 0.025 degrees. Mars really fits very well into this cycle. Mars has a cycle, a synodic cycle of 780 days. That is 39 times 20. What does that mean, the synodic cycle? It means that when Mars is at due south at midnight, solar midnight, all right? In other words, when the sun is due north and Mars is due south, that's when Mars is in opposition to the sun. Well, it'll come back to that position 780 days later. Okay? It takes 780 days for Mars to do a whole cycle with respect to the sun. Okay? That could be done via conjunction. When Mars is in conjunction with the sun, then it takes 780 days to come back to its conjunction with the sun. But it's easier to do it with opposition because you're not looking straight at the sun. And you can't see Mars when it's behind the sun anyway. So it's much easier to do it through opposition. Anyways, the important point is that the Mars synodic cycle, you can see, is 779.965 days. In other words, virtually exactly 780 days. That's 39 times 20 days, right? So we saw earlier that the 20-day thing seemed to be used by dividing this between the solstices, 180 days, 9 spaces, that's 9 times 20 days. Now we discover that 39 times 20 days, in other words, 1 time round the disk, corresponds to the Mars cycle. The 20-day Mayan calendar is very interesting. So the 20-day names in the Mayan calendar are called the Winal, the Mayan month. They also have a Trekina, which is a 13-day period. And these two together make the sacred year, the Tzolkin of 260 days. It's a combination of these 2 cycles. 3 Tzolkins. The Tzolkin is the major sacred cycle for the Mayan. 3 of those cycles is 780 days, which is the Mars cycle. It seems fairly clear that the Mayans were also following Mars with a 20-day cycle. So you could divide the disk into 3, and each part of that disk will be a Tzolkin, a Maya Tzolkin, or 6, which are half a Maya Tzolkin. Now Venus, let's have a look at Venus, because Mars and Venus, often we like to, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, we like to know what's going on in the relationship. And so it's an inner planet. When you're looking towards it, it goes one way, then it goes back the other way. It goes behind the sun at one point, and then comes in front of the sun at another point. Sometimes it has a transit where it goes right in front of the sun and you can see it. That's fairly rare. So it flips from one side to the other. So when it's on one side, it's visible in the evening, in the night sky. When the sun sets, you see Venus appear in the evening sky, and sometimes it's visible in the morning before the sunrise. You can see it in the eastern sky. Before the sun comes up, then Venus is there shining in the eastern sky. Its total cycle, seen from Earth, lasts 584 days. There you go, it went round the wrong way, doesn't matter, 584 days. Now, 39 times 15 is 585 days. So if we move a Venus peg one hole every 15 days, 15 days is a known length of time as well. And in French, they say une quinzaine, 15 days. Instead of a fortnight is 14 nights, but the French say quinzaine, 15, right? And in Welsh as well, there is an actual name for a period of 15 days. That's in the book. So the Venus cycle, if we move a peg every 15 days, then we could follow the Venus cycle as well. But when it's close to its superior conjunction, superior is when it passes behind the Sun, it's like its movement goes in the same way as all the other planets, Mars and Jupiter, Saturn, they go in the same direction. Mars is going along that way. But when it comes in front of the Sun, it's moving in the other direction. It's called retrograde, where Venus and Mars seem to be in conjunction. But they're not in conjunction because Venus never actually gets further than 45 degrees away from the Sun. So if we'd put Venus back up here and then done our whole movement in the other direction, we would have had an opposition, right? Which is what it was. Whereas here it shows a conjunction. That wouldn't work, okay? This leads us to realize that there can be a great Mars-Venus-Sun cycle, which is 20 times Venus going round or 15 times Mars going round, which lasts 11,690 days. In this becomes 32.000616 years, 32 years and 2 days. So if you wanted to follow Mercury's path, went one hole every 3 days, and you could see where Mercury was going. That's interesting because Mercury in Greece was called Hermes Trismegistus, or Hermes 3 times great. Huh? You move him 3 holes, there you go. So these cycles of Mercury as well with this. Now there's another very interesting cycle, the human gestation cycle of 273 days or 39 weeks. Isn't that interesting? 39 weeks in the human gestation cycle. It's also interesting because one lunar orbit lasts 27.3 days. 10 lunar orbits last 273 days, or 39 weeks. So in Europe, pregnancy lasts 9 months. In China, pregnancy lasts 10 months because they use lunar months, right? I wanted to show you this. This is Vézelay in France. It dates from the Crusades. This is zodiac. You've got a zodiac around here with 24 medallions, one medallion with each zodiac sign and one medallion showing the work being done in the fields at that time. But above, you see you have a central axis here above Christ's head here. So the zodiac goes from here to here and then from there down to here with 24 medallions. But you have another 3 medallions here, plus a third of a medallion. There's a third of a medallion squashed in there, look at that. And it's a stalk. You know, they bring babies. Yeah, you know that? It's psychopump. It takes souls up and down. And this is fixed in there to show this 27 1/3 or 273 day cycle. The human gestation cycle. So if you want to follow human gestation cycle or the 10 moon cycles, then you move your peg around once a week. Once a week, every Monday for example, then you move it round one hole. This is internationally known as the 58-hole game. There are 59 holes on the... This is not a joke, right? There are 59 holes on these things, not 58. Because there's a big hole here, right? You see the big hole? They haven't counted that. So there are 58 little holes and one big hole. 59 holes. And what's astounding is that the organization of these 59 holes is there are 39 around the edge and 20 inside. Look at this. So if you move a peg 10 and then 10, that's 20 days, and then you move your peg on 1, well, you've got to think for counting your 20-day cycle to move on around Mars. And if you go all around the side, then you're going from one side to the other. You do the whole 780-day cycle with this. It's called a game, but if you look at the Louvre Museum, the thing about this, it says, well, we never found the rules. Yeah, don't know how to play it. Okay. But what's interesting is that it's also 59 is twice 29 and a half, which is the moon cycle. So you can follow the moon around this one. You can move it from a new moon up to another new moon and then back down. You do 2 moon cycles, 59 holes.